Minutes to be considered are the minutes of July 23rd, 2014, submitted to us by our recorder back in August. There was a slight correction made in the minutes. Any discussion?
No,
No.
Do I hear him?
no
All right,
changes.
so seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I move that we approve the minutes of the August,
No.
July
July
23rd.
July 23rd.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great, those are approved.
Next minutes are for the meeting of August 7th, 2014. Any discussion?
Those look good.
Yep.
Move to accept the minutes of August 7th, 2014.
I
Second.
second that
All in
motion.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And those pass.
Next on the agenda, the minutes for our meeting of August 27th, 2014. Any discussion?
Just a couple of typos in that one. On page 2, second paragraph, second line says the board, before the board and provided, it should be "and" instead of "and." And then down 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth paragraph, second line, additional trips generated by the bank. It says, just says "the bank." She forgot the word "by." You guys all see that, Mr.
No,
It's the paragraph that starts, Mr. Mishard distributed a supplemental memo that addressed
Oh.
models. So on the second line.
got it, okay.
Yeah, second line, just additional trips generated by the bank.
So insert by.
Yeah.
Yep. Regarding space. Then down 1, 2, 3, 4 more paragraphs. 1, 2, 3, third line, sentence starting with regarding. Regarding the space, it says near at the entrance. We don't need both of those. Probably get rid of at. And that's all I have for that one. Everything else is good. Hey, any other
No.
changes?
Corrections? No.
No.
make a motion to approve the minutes of August 27th, 2014 with the typographical corrections as noted by Mr. Jack.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great. Those are approved.
Next, final item is the minutes of our meeting of September 11th, 2014. Any discussion?
Just
That
one
was the
side.
continuance. Wasn't that just continuing the meeting?
No,
a short meeting.
that was a subsequent meeting that we do not have
Okay.
the minutes for as yet.
Yeah.
That was the 1 hour meeting at 6.
Yeah.
Correct.
Second paragraph, just Mr. McNulty, Mr. Trefethan are sitting on the hearing. Mr. Dana will assume his role, I think, instead of roles. That's all I had.
Roll. Yeah, take the S out.
That's it. That's all I had.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of the September 11th, 2014 meeting with the amendment suggested by Mr. Jack.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so now we officially caught up.
We are caught up with all minutes that have been prepared. We just have the September 16th meeting minutes, which was just a continuance and have not yet been prepared.
So, the next item, I think, is 7:15. Yeah, so we got a couple of minutes. Anything you guys want to discuss? We have town council here. I don't know if we ever want to schedule that. We're going to do the fees at some point.
We had talked about scheduling the
Would be-
discussion about the
The fee,
revisiting the fees and updating fees on the comprehensive permit applications, and we had continued that to a date to be determined. Certainly might be appropriate.
Yeah.
That Adam is here to talk about that, as far as a date is concerned.
Sure. I'm happy to make myself available whenever you'd like.
Realistically, how long do you think that discussion will take?
fees in the context of comprehensive permits. I mean, you've got fee regulations already.
Yeah.
The problems you have is that you've got an inconsistency between the original regulations and the subsequent regulations that were adopted specific for comprehensive permits.
Yeah.
So obviously the primary goal is to eliminate that inconsistency by adopting something that would take the place of both sets of existing regulations. But there's not a whole lot to discuss. It's really a question of whether you want to charge the same fee for all different types of organizations, nonprofit versus for-profit, dividend. And then once you make that determination, what that fee is, whether it's a flat fee, whether it's based on project size, and how you go about picking the right numbers. And I guess if I've got enough advance notice, I can try to provide you with some examples of how it's done in other communities and how those fees have been reached.
Okay. So, half an hour or so, the 14th is the 40B, the next one's the 29th. I mean, at this point, we don't have, I don't think we have anything for the 29th. I'm anticipating the 40B again, but we could push that to 7:30.
Would it make sense to do it on a night when Adam would most likely be
Be
here anyways?
Yeah.
You'll
That-
save the travel cost.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. So, anybody want to give a motion to schedule that?
The 29th of October?
Yeah, we'll say 7:05, do 5 minutes of
It's a normal meeting, that's the meeting date anyway.
minutes.
Okay,
So,
I move that we discuss the fee scheduling question inconsistencies on the 29th of October with Adam being present and providing the appropriate information.
at 7:05?
7:05.
Okay. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we'll put that on the agenda. So that's, what is that? That's 10:29. So 10:29, we'll do minutes.
No,
And Adam, 7:05.
in November, moving ahead,
Yeah,
Election Day is the 4th, which,
that's our first.
and, well, you've got Election Day, and then the following Tuesday is Veterans Day. They're both
Right.
days, so it looks like our only meeting in November would be the 26th of November, which is the day before Thanksgiving. Parenthetically.
is this
Good
the day
point.
before?
Hmm?
27th this year, Thanksgiving?
So,
It's just a general scheduling of
Yeah.
whatever.
what do you guys think of the Tuesday, the 18th?
Town meeting is that night.
That's town meeting?
Yes, it is. I know it is.
That's not very important. All right. Who will get more people, us for the 40B or town? No, okay.
Ooh.
All right, so, and then, what have they been doing recently, Adam, on continuances? The next night for town meeting?
They have been. That's right. I'm not sure where this is a special. I'm not sure
Yeah,
if they've scheduled the second night and if they've done it the same way as they would for an annual.
yeah, I just don't want to take the chance. So that takes out the 18th and the 19th.
Are you into November?
Into November, yeah, so, and we could go earlier, we could do sometime the week of the 11th,
Yeah, except the 11th.
except for the 11th, you could do the 12th.
Yeah.
I'm not available on the 12th.
Okay.
I'm not available either. I'll be in Paris from the 6th to the 12th.
Sounds rough.
Yeah,
Um,
too short.
okay. 19th?
19th sounds fine to
Okay with
me.
me.
Oh, no, 19th is the next
Yeah.
day, right. What about the 13th?
13th is fine.
13th. Now, we have to see room availability too, though.
Yeah.
Anyone, any tablet guys?
Never reorganize your iPad. You always think you're putting it in the right place, then you forget it.
But I'd rather Get back from Paris on the 12th.
When you get back to 12?
Yeah. I don't know about how awake I'll be.
As long as you've got cheese and wine. It's all
That's
right.
Or bring cheese and whatnot.
Right.
No, I found the,
You trying to find it, or do you want me to go?
I'm there.
Okay.
It just has to. It just has to come up with the calendar, that's all. Okay, public meeting calendar.
So the
Halfway there.
133 human is this October 16th.
October?
Want me to do it, I'll do it. I was actually looking at the peer review.
Okay, here we go. I got it now.
All right, so the 13th, anything in this room that night?
The blue line is moving. Here we go. It's not showing anything at the moment on my calendar here, November 2014.
Okay. And what night does the planning board usually meet on?
They've been changing it up a bit, but typically on Tuesdays.
Okay. And selectmen on what day? What, Wednesdays? All right, so Thursday the 13th looks...
Nat is here, if we might ask him.
Oh. Nat, do you know if there's anything on November 13th in this room for like planning board?
Planning board's on second and fourth Thursday of the month.
Thank you. Okay.
So that is the second Thursday.
Oh, that's the second and fourth Thursdays. So theoretically, that's that day. Okay.
And there's nothing on the calendar for the month of November.
Right,
at all.
it's not, yeah,
So
okay.
it's not as if the room's open, they just haven't updated the
Right,
calendar.
Right,
so it is-
right.
That's, we agree that we're finding nothing, yeah.
Did somebody say the 17th didn't work for some reason?
No, 17 is fine with me.
Monday the 17th? All right, so let's tentatively say Monday the 17th.
That's the one I can't come to.
Oh, that's the one you can't come to.
Well, I can, our community improvement committee meetings are generally, we start at 6:30, and they generally last half an hour, but because we probably have some activity for the town meeting that we have to present,
Okay.
it might go longer. So if you wanted to, you could start without me.
What about the 20th?
20th is no problem at all. I'm available.
No way town meeting will go 3 nights, so,
November 20th?
yeah.
Works for me.
All right, so we'll say tentatively November 20th. We'll check the room availability.
Cool.
Okay, good.
And what are we gonna, that's gonna be for the,
Just a November
40B?
meeting, yeah,
Okay.
assuming we need
Just
it.
just a meeting?
Right.
Okay.
Just a placeholder for a
Yeah.
meeting, right?
Right, if we need it. Okay, so it is just after 7:15, so the next agenda item is the continuance of the special permit application by Needham Bank for a drive-through, 41 Front Street. So last meeting, we didn't close it, we sort of soft-closed it, but we did get some additional information in from the applicant. I'm assuming everyone got to see that. So I was thinking we'd give the applicant a few minutes just to sort of summarize that. And then if we have questions, we'll ask, but then at that point, we would start talking about decisions. No idea what that noise is. Is that me?
Stan's microphone.
Oh, okay. Okay, so, take it away.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. For the record, I'm Catherine Garahan from the law firm of Bowditch and Dewey. To start, Needham Bank would like to walk through the updates since the date of the last meeting, all of which you have received in writing, but we really have no other presentations planned. At the last meeting of the continued hearing, you requested that the applicant return with an updated plan after finalizing the location of a walk-up ATM and having discussed it with the planning board. And you also requested that any other further updates or comments by any party be in writing. The applicant finalized its walk-up ATM location, achieving a separation of walk-up and drive-up activities on the site. And then the applicant met with the planning board about this updated plan on September 23rd. At that September 23rd meeting, the planning board approved the site plan. The updated site plan is dated September 19th, and it should be in your packets. The planning board approved this plan with conditions. The planning board also approved at that time the applicant's special permit for signs. The applicant is hoping that following these updates, the board will have sufficient information to close the public hearing tonight and discuss its required findings for a special permit and discuss any conditions you would apply if approving the drive-through use. Related to the updated plans, the main substantial change, again, is the walk-up ATM, now located in the entry vestibule. As we discussed with you last time, that was the location the applicant was hoping to achieve. It required rearranging some internal features of the building, which the applicant was able to do, and feels that this is the best location for its customers and its operations. It's also indoor, out of the elements, and will be available 24/7 via key card access. As you know, this was a major change and a concession to the bank, and it directly addresses the board's concerns related to the possibility of pedestrians being in the proposed drive-through to use an ATM. And we hope that the board is satisfied with this outcome. Specifically, as shown on the updated plans, the walkable ATM is noted outside the main door on your plans with a caption reading, "Proposed addition with main entrance and 24-hour ATM." The other two changes to the site plan from what you earlier reviewed are on the parking plan. The northernmost space closest to Front Street is marked employee only. This is consistent with Ashland Police Safety and Logistics Officer Ed Berman's recommendation following his recent site walk of the property and the concurrence of the town's traffic consultant, FST. In your packets, I believe you have correspondence from both Officer Berman and from Doug Prentice of FST related to this. The only other change on the plans from what you saw at the last meeting is a signature block added for the planning board's use for recording purposes. If the board would like to ask questions about that, the correspondence from Officer Berman and Mr. Prentice of FST, we're happy to go into those correspondences and the discussions we had with the planning board related. If it's agreeable to the board, we thought it might be helpful for the board to have a description of the conditions that the planning board imposed in its decision beyond the boilerplate conditions. There are 5 specific conditions, and town planner and town council who are here can add to this or correct me if I have any of these wrong, but would you like me to go through those?
Sure,
yeah. The first is that the northernmost planning space situated along the locus easterly boundary, as shown in the plans, must be designated for employee use only. The second is that if a drive-through ATM is installed or operated, then a walk-up ATM must also be installed and operated. Also, signage or other notice must be posted on or adjacent to a drive-through ATM, discouraging pedestrian use and notifying patrons of the availability of a walk-up ATM. In discussing that, we talked about possibly having that be on the screen of the ATM to avoid having to have another sign on the building, and the board, was open to that if the bank can accomplish that. So the welcome screen that the ATM would have on a drive-through ATM would say, you know, pedestrian-friendly ATM, you know, located
Okay.
at the front entrance.
That was condition 3?
That was the second of 5 conditions that the, and they're within the boilerplate, so I can get, I actually brought copies, and I don't know if Attorney Costa brought additional copies of the decisions that are circulating now for the planning board's review,
Just
but
want
if.
to summarize for now, that's
Okay.
fine, yeah.
Okay. The third specific condition was that the board expressly conditioned its approval on the completion of proposed off-site improvements on the adjacent municipal parking facility. And those are the improvements that we've described to you. There's 7 architectural light posts. There's the closing off of the driveway between the locus and the town's municipal lot, installing a walkway that connects across that closing off, and landscaping, and installing 4 parking spaces where that cut-through had been. The fourth specific condition was that the pylon sign, the approved pylon sign, will be illuminated only between the hours of 5 a.m. and 10 p.m. This condition also appears on the special permit for signs decision. And the fifth specific condition is that a mitigation donation in the amount of $40,000 would be made by the applicant to the town to be placed in a separate account for purposes of studying the need for and location of additional municipal parking in proximity to the locus and in the downtown Ashland area generally, creating the same, maintaining both existing and any such future municipal parking areas or lots, installing ADA compliant upgrades at nearby intersections, providing streetscape improvements in the downtown and the like, and the sum would be spent by the board with approval of the town's Board of Selectmen. So those were the 5 specific beyond the boilerplate conditions.
So on that last one, are those funds to do a study regarding some of the ADA upgrades that we had discussed? Is it actually to do those ADA upgrades?
Well, it could be applied by the town to do the upgrades, for the town to do them, yes. So there were, you know, kind of a menu list of items that the town would decide how to apply the money
Okay.
within
What was
those.
the lighting one again, number 4?
The pylon sign shall be illuminated only between the hours of 5 a.m. and 10 p.m. So on in time for people leaving early to work, you know, and off by 10 o'clock at night. So the applicant's, you know, at this point, believes it has demonstrated that it meets the criteria and findings that the board must make, and it's prepared to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Are the lights glare-free? They minimize glare for the neighbors?
They're downward pointing.
Well, I'm
An
not
LED.
very knowledgeable about lights. So, you can have one downward pointing and be very bright
You're talking about on the sign, on the pylon sign itself, or on the building?
all around. I'm thinking of the neighbors, just the glare. Yeah, I see the hanging lights. Is that consistent with what one would do to minimize glare?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. There's nothing else they would do, right?
And that's,
Except collimate the light.
do we have a-
Collimate the light. In other words, put a lens that makes sure the light all goes down.
hard to see.
Collimate it.
Oh, yeah, that's
But
good.
you don't do that.
And the same sort of downward-facing lamp is on the pylon itself,
Yeah,
so.
okay. Has anybody ever asked you to collimate the light? Thank you.
Other questions?
As I understand the proposal now, you're proposing to do a drive, a drive-through teller window, a drive-through ATM, as well as the walk-up ATM. Is that correct?
Yes, that is the proposal. The immediate plans are to start with the walk-up ATM.
See, that's what I'm getting
Yes.
at, because when we were last here, it was my understanding that the drive-through that was being sought at that point was going to be for a teller window, and the consideration was the walk-up ATM was going to replace the drive-up ATM. And
No.
now it seems like maybe that's not the case.
Right, no, and
And I just want to be clear, because
Yes.
even the walk-up ATM has solved many of my questions and concerns, but still having a drive-up ATM that allows somebody to potentially walk up in an area where there are a lot of pedestrians is a major safety issue for me. And it's unclear to me what it is that you're proposing to do and asking us to do, because I'm not sure I'm prepared to approve a drive-up ATM at this point. So I just want to be clear what it is you're asking us to ultimately vote on and decide.
okay, so to start with, I mean, absolutely, the drive-through teller window is part of the proposal. The drive-through ATM is also part of the proposal. However, the applicant plans to defer that based on its business judgment if it is needed. The applicant is proposing a walk-up ATM that it will have on day one. So, I'm sorry?
In the lobby of the building.
In the lobby of the building, yes. So the applicant is requesting approval for the drive-up ATM. However, it does not intend to begin with it. It's going to begin with the walk-up ATM in the lobby. And then if it does install a drive-up ATM, it plans to provide it the way the planning board has conditions, that there will be a notice that for pedestrians, please use the ATM at the main entrance.
You know what?
Well, I guess it really doesn't address all of my concerns, because you're asking us for approval now for something that may or may not be constructed by the applicant, and I'm not sure I'm prepared to recommend that. How would the applicant feel if we were to approve a drive-up window for the teller, but that the applicant would have to come back before this board to seek a permit to add a drive-up ATM machine at some point in the future?
We're continuing to have an internal debate about the drive-up ATM. I think a few weeks ago, our feeling was we didn't want to have two ATMs. We're still debating that. There are some factors that would say, fine, let's have the drive-up ATM as well, knowing that we have to put the walk-up ATM 24/7 there first. And we thought it was reasonable to put the signage that was requested by the planning board as the mitigating factor. We have other drive-up ATMs in our other offices. We have a drive-up ATM behind the main office in downtown Needham. Very short queuing line coming in off Garden Street. People park in that parking lot and walk up to that ATM all the time. We never had an accident there. I was walking by the ATM, getting cash the other day, a car came up, and you're clearly visible. Nobody runs over you. There's never been an accident, to the best of my knowledge, of any drive-up ATM. We see people getting out of their cars at these ATMs, walking up to the machine. We see them parking and walking up to drive-up ATMs. In Needham, in our other branches, other bank branches in Natick, in Wellesley, this just has not been a problem anywhere. The transactions are so fast at the ATM, right now you're usually out of there in 15 seconds.
Not when I'm behind somebody.
We have nothing further.
A couple of follow-ups, but would you feel better if, so right now the proposal on the signage is on the screen itself, right? So you'd have to
It could be on the screen, or
relatively
it,
proximate to it to see that, right? So if you had one that you could see better from the approach. Would
Right.
that make you feel better saying, you know, because if people have the choice, I don't think anyone's gonna walk up to the one in the queue. That's
You
just
know, I understand that, and I certainly don't want the site to be oversigned, because
Right.
that's more unsightly and not something that, you know, downtown needs, is an overabundance of signs.
Right, and the planning board gave that option, that it could be on the screen, or it could be, you know, in a different
Okay.
fashion. You know, if you felt differently about that, you know,
The
that's,
bank does not want to create an unsafe situation either.
Oh, I'm sure you don't.
Makes life safe.
Okay.
Adam, just a question, so is there a sunset on these special permit approvals, or you have to use them within 2 years?
The statutory standard for special permit lapse is a 2-year period. It's commencement of construction or use. So the commencement of construction of the building would constitute a use of the special permit, and there's no term on the period of construction other than that the applicant reasonably pursue construction. So there is case law out there that exists where projects have multi-phase projects have been begun under a special permit, and a decade or more has passed. There's a case out there where 20 years passed, and the court said that the permit was still valid. So there's no period of time within which they must complete the work. So if they begin construction and you were to authorize 2 ATMs, both a walk-up and a drive-through, and they were to elect not to construct the drive-through ATM initially, they could do so at a later date, and they could do so pursuant to the special permit, unless you were to condition the special permit such that they couldn't do that they had to construct it within a certain period of time, otherwise come back before the board for reapproval.
Which I'm not really inclined to do. I mean, if we're gonna give it to them, let's just give it to them. And, yeah.
I think the bank's own usage would more drive the second ATM.
Business needs, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you answered that. Yeah, we had talked, it looked like most of the concerns that we had were addressed by this, except for some type of yield signage on the 2 lanes. Has that been addressed?
yes, and I might be wrong. I had thought it was on your last iteration, but if I'm wrong, it appears at the, it's painted on the pavement at the end of the, as you exit the drive-through lane.
Okay.
So I'm sorry if I didn't point
Well,
that out.
That's
Yeah.
fine. So we wouldn't even have to condition for that, right? I mean, it's already on the plan, so
It's
it's
already-
as built, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's all I've got. Just, I read the language for the planning board's approval of the ATM. It just wasn't crystal clear that the interior ATM had to be operational first.
Yes.
So on our condition, I'd like to mirror those conditions. The lighting one, I don't really care about the lighting one,
They
but the other
stated
four.
in their letter, though.
They stated in their letter, but the actual language, I read the actual language that Adam provided us, or Nat provided us, and it's not very clear. So if we could just, when we draft ours, if we could just make it clear that the interior one has to go first and be operational.
Okay,
I'm
so
not-
the letter is not legal and binding.
The letter's just, and she did a great summary, but it's just a
Yeah.
summary of it.
Yes, that was,
So-
yeah.
So we'd have to put it as a condition to make it binding.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And then I was reading the email from Ed Berman, which was great. How does the applicant envision a condition with a look-back period like that? Like, how would you, basically says, you know, we'll take a look at it, and if it's a problem and we have to get rid of that space, we'll get rid of that space. I've never written that kind of condition, so how would you guys want that condition?
I might ask Mr. Michaud to answer this. I think we've maybe discussed this with the board in the past, did we? A possible way to condition it, yeah.
Right, so, again, Robert Michaud, I think there needs to be some metric that we can look back on and determine whether or not that metric was met or not. So one way to do that would be to, at 6-month and 1-year periods following the opening of the bank and the operation of that space, to actually report based on local crash records, the police records, whether or not there were any incidents associated with the use of that space. And to the extent that did occur, that the countermeasure for that would be the additional restriction or elimination of the space depending on the nature of the incident or characteristics of the incident. So that could be striping it out, hatch lines, no parking, or it could be physical elimination of the space with curbing. I think the appropriate metric would be to do the look back at a 6-month and a 1-year period based on those local records.
You guys find it reasonable?
Makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
No.
So we would,
But is there a mechanism for that?
So,
Well, we would put it as a condition that they would report back to us.
Or-
Stu?
or does the email suggest that the police are gonna make
Well, I was
that?
gonna say that.
Yeah.
I'd like.
That's what the
as
email
part
says.
of the reporting back, something from Ed or his replacement concurring that, in his opinion, there haven't been any incidents.
Sure, yeah. It would be based on their records.
Right, I don't know if an accident report's gonna actually say, hey, this space right here was the culprit, you know?
It would be apparent through any written report what the nature of the crash would be. That's the nature of a local incident record, and they are specific.
So, just belt and suspenders, I think of what, Adam, when we're doing that one, I'd like us not just specific to that spot, but then why not just let us know if there's been any accidents.
That would be a
on the
natural
site.
outcome of that process,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
Yeah, so the site itself would be evaluated from the perspective of any reported incidents at 6 months and a year, and the nature of those incidents,
Okay.
it's, the experience of the bank in their other operations in similar settings, that there has been no issue. We would expect that to be the case here. We've discussed those aspects of the site
Sure.
with the police department, so we're comfortable that through that provision that we could come to a resolution with a measurable
Okay.
metric.
That metric seem to you guys?
That sounds fine.
no, I don't know what else
Yes.
you do.
That is all I had.
I have no more. I
Okay.
think we've asked all, I think we've discussed everything that I see.
Okay, so then the conditions that I'm here, or first of all, I mean, so it's sort of a soft close here, right? So we'll talk about this a little bit. So I'm not voting on this. So right now it's, who's voting on this?
I
You
am Stan and Tom.
and Tom, but you're not gonna be here to sign the decision probably.
Correct.
So how do we usually, should I have Stu vote as well since he'll be here to sign the decision?
I'm not so much concerned about availability to sign, I'm concerned about availability to vote. So we had talked a bit prior to the board's
Right,
past
right.
meeting about when the voting would occur. Typically that occurs, and I defer to the board, when the board has a written decision in front of it so you know what you're voting on. We can certainly discuss tonight one aspect of the decision that I will have to incorporate into my draft, which are the various findings the board's required to make. As you know, as special permit granting authority, there's a 6-part test that needs to be met before any special permit can issue. In the past, when I've not been given any indication from the board as to what those findings might be, I've left those blank in the draft decision I provide. Where we've got this additional meeting tonight, before a draft decision is provided,
We'll go through
we could
those.
discuss
Yeah.
those tonight. But I would incorporate those into a decision. The voting members would need to be present at the next meeting to vote on that decision, and preferably available the next few days after that meeting to sign it. I'll finalize whatever I present to you at the next meeting within a matter of 24, 48 hours as soon as need be, so that those members are available to sign it.
Okay. So,
So does that mean that Stu, can we have more than 3 sitting?
well,
Oh, he would replace me.
he won't be here. Tom-
No, I know, but,
yes,
okay.
You're all sitting, but only 3 would be voting. So, and that determination doesn't need to be made until the next meeting when you have a decision and you're voting on it,
So the
unless you intend to
alternate-
vote tonight.
The alternate can be one of the 3.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, where are you guys? I mean, are you inclined to?
Do we need to close the hearing before we start the discussion?
No,
Or
I think we can
keep
discuss
the hearing
it.
open?
We can
Okay.
discuss it, in case we have questions.
Discussion,
you know, So so I'll leave it up, since I'm not voting. Where are you guys at?
Do we, there is one of those test is that one of the things we're supposed to do is consult with the planning committee, for the town plan, and we did discuss the question about whether that would later become the town center, and whether this is contrary. Do we resolve that in our minds and say to ourselves and agree that we go ahead because we can always take it later if the town wanted, or?
I think that's an individual decision. We haven't really discussed it.
We haven't discussed it.
We've had some discussion.
Would it be more, isn't it more appropriate to discuss initially whether
What's before us?
what's before us, which is an
what our
application
intent-
for
yeah, a
a
drive-through.
drive-through, and
Yeah,
whether
that's it,
there
yeah.
are 3 votes that are going to approve
Yeah.
that or not, and then we can flesh out, as
conditions,
council said, not only the conditions, but then the evidence
criteria.
that we say supports the
Yeah,
decision, I would think.
But one of the things that in the papers that Adam gave us to study says that we're supposed to take into consideration the town's plan. So this goes back, I get the document if you want to pull it out. But, so that does enter into our decision. The question I have is, and we know that the town's plan, I think Nate can tell us about that, is to include that property as the town center. So we did have some discussion on it. And and one of the things was, we said, well, I thought we said, well, we can go ahead anyway because things can always be changed later, not by us, but the town could take it by eminent domain or buy it from them or something like that. But so what I want to know is, did we settle this in our minds as to how we want to deal with that, or do we want to deal with it?
I mean, I think it's an issue that we need to discuss, but, your use of the word plan, I think, is more than what we've heard from the people that have spoken at this hearing. I would call it a, quote, wish list more than a plan.
their ideas.
There is nothing from the town advancing any proposal for a town green, as it were, which is an admirable thing to have. But there have been discussions and what have you, but there's nothing that has been advanced by the town in any stage. And to my mind, that if in fact the town determines that it wants to do that, there are mechanisms available for the town, with or without the cooperation of the property owner, to do that in the future.
Sure.
It's been determined
the-
that this
the-
property
But
is
it's
being
private
leased to
property.
the bank.
And it's, as
That's
of
before
right,
us.
a bank is permitted.
No, what's before us is to give a special permit for drive-throughs.
Yeah, that's
That's
it.
what's before.
Right.
That's it.
When we consider special permit for drive-throughs, we're supposed to consider certain things, and one of them is what the town plans are. There is, I can search the documents and find it. So what I'd like to ask, just ask Nat, is what John said, would you say that's a correct statement? Or would you say that there's more than just a wish list regarding the town center?
State your name.
Nat Strasburg, Town Planner. I mean, over the years, there have been a number of concepts that have been floated in regard to that piece of property and that area in general. How that relates to the drive-through, which is your purview and what you have to decide about, that's up to you. I guess that doesn't answer your
Okay, so
question, though.
There's no fixed, there's no, you people never generated a document that said that is to be the town center, and that would have to be a town meeting kind of thing at this time. So there is no official plan that the town has to to make that the town center. Is that correct?
There's no one official plan that does that promotes a program for that area. Not one official plan. There have been documents over the years that have discussed various concepts for that area.
Concept is the right word.
So concepts is where we're at.
Yeah.
Concepts, ideas, but there's no one official program that's been designated for the town for that area.
Okay.
There's certainly no upcoming warrant article or anything to
No.
create a town, okay.
Okay.
And I
Thank
think
you.
all the testimony that we've had has said that there are, I think the correct word that Matt used was concepts. I mean, there's probably a concept to take the railroad out of the town too, but currently, there's nothing beyond someone or a reasonable group would desire that. It's just an idea.
Could I offer?
Eminent domains and town board of selectmen, et cetera, they're nowhere near anything like that.
Right, and if I could just offer some clarity through you, Phil. I think what John said was very artfully said and is probably a very good characterization of where things stand today. I don't know that it would be all that different if there were more of an official plan. If there were an official plan, if there were even an item on a town meeting warrant, the board's purview is its review of a proposal before it on privately owned property for a bank with a drive-through. And specifically, the purview is the drive-through and the drive-through alone as a use on the site. There are 6 factors that need to be considered by the board. We spoke earlier about the board continuing to discuss those findings once there's a consensus as to what the decision might be, and approval with conditions of denial. One of those factors, and this may be what Stan was referencing, are community needs served by the proposal. Another one is neighborhood character and social structures. One could argue that in considering these factors, the overall planning objectives for the downtown Ashland area come into play. And again, that's sort of a personal decision, ultimately a board decision as to how that affects the appropriateness of a drive-through on this site. But certainly the board needs to be careful in sort of circumscribing its review to the proposal that's before it, which is a proposal on private property by a private property owner entitled to present itself to the board. It's a bank with a drive-through. And as you said, John, if in the future there is some desire on the part of the town, and right now it might just be pie in the sky, but maybe it'll be something that comes to fruition in the future. Municipalities have mechanisms available to themselves, eminent domain and otherwise, by which it can take private property to be put to public use. But that's a discussion that is yet to be had, to my knowledge, and could happen in the future regardless of whether this proposal proceeds or not.
That's fine. Thank you very much.
Sure.
So maybe we'll just start with Stu. We'll just go through the voting members, just a sense of where you're at. We're not taking any public comment tonight.
Okay.
Sorry. Stu?
Oh, I would vote in favor of the proposal for a drive-through and the creation of a bank at 41 Front Street.
Oh, we're just voting for the drive-through, right? Not the
Yeah.
creation of the bank, okay.
You know, I've expressed my concerns about the drive-through ATM. I understand, you know, the bank's position, but I'm prepared to approve the project, the drive-through.
Stan?
I'm prepared to approve it because I can't see the grounds to refuse it.
Okay.
I would approve it based upon the input that we've received over the series of our public hearing.
Okay. So if that's the case, then let's, you guys want to tackle the 6 criteria first, or do you want to, and then go to conditions after that?
Fine.
Okay. All right, so I'll just read from our bylaws. Special permits, 9-3-2 criteria. Special permits shall be granted by the special permit granting authority, which is us, unless otherwise specified herein, only upon its written determination that the adverse effects of the proposed use will not outweigh its beneficial impacts to the town or the neighborhood in view of the particular characteristics of the site and of the proposal in relation to that site. In addition to any specific factors that may be set forth in this bylaw, the determination shall include consideration of each of the following. So let's run through each one of them. One, community needs served by the proposal. Any comments on which community needs are served by this?
I mean, approval of a drive-through would allow a new active business in town with a design proposal that has been approved by the planning board that would make the area more attractive from the somewhat rundown building that is there now. Would also provide a service to the residents of the town of Ashland and surrounding communities. And also, with their mitigation measures, would improve the sidewalk and downtown amenities.
Okay, anything else?
I find that eloquent, and I'm in agreement with that, except I'm not sure they wouldn't go ahead without a drive-through, so that's the only comment I've had now.
Okay, although I believe that the applicants at least indicated that it might not be economic otherwise, but.
Okay.
Okay, 2, traffic flow and safety, including parking and loading. So traffic, we've had a ton of discussion on that.
Yes.
Are you guys satisfied that they've addressed all the traffic concerns?
Yes, I think that's.
I think the traffic issues have been, dealt with adequately, and certainly with our peer review consultant. The only question on parking would be the northeast corner
Right.
parking space that we've talked about, and that I am going to presume will be the subject of a condition attached to an approval.
Yeah.
Agree with that.
Well, I had a little concern about adequacy of parking on site, particularly if, that municipal parking ever does disappear, but they've given $40,000 to study, to create, a parking plan, so I'm satisfied with that.
Yeah.
3, adequacy of utilities and other public services.
That
Doesn't seem to be an issue.
I don't think there was an issue
it was an issue, it's.
that was ever
those
presented
things
to
are
us.
there.
Neighborhood,
Who would have brought those up? It seems to me that.
If there was
the
no-
planning board would have,
yeah, if there was no water.
I think it would have come up as part of
Sewer.
the site plan
yeah,
approval.
that's what
Yeah,
I think, yeah.
there would have been discussions about if it needed a septic tank, where it would go, et cetera. As a good
We haven't
example,
closed
but-
Should
the
they
hearing, we
include
can
it?
ask them point blank, do you guys have adequate municipal services?
Yeah,
at
there
your-
we go.
Excellent,
Did you plan to mention them?
It's actually being improved with the electric going underground.
there you go.
Yeah.
Good point.
Drainage
Well,
improvements.
yeah,
Good
I
point.
would think it would have to, thank you.
4, neighborhood character and social structures. I mean, it's downtown.
Downtown, I think the picture that we can see clearly shows the character of the downtown, all of the other structures around it. It fits. It's been fitting there since, 1954? So I see no reason to say it doesn't fit. It does fit if it was for something else.
It's an improvement in the cosmetics, and
Yes.
actually, some of the traffic flow is improved, too, within the parking lot in that.
Yeah, I think
Definitely a better
it
looking
fits
building
well.
than what it is today, so
I think it fits well.
if you can't get a haircut.
That's across the street.
Across the street. Anything else you guys want to add?
No?
Okay. 5, impacts on the natural environment.
I don't see any, really, other, the lighting has been an issue, apparently has been addressed. And there will be some landscaping, which is not presently there at the moment. It's a fairly sort of rundown lot, and the proposal seems to improve landscaping.
Up, too.
Again, where that fits within our purview for a drive-through special permit, I'm not sure, but
There's
Yeah.
no footprint for waste removal, because they're gonna
Right.
do that daily, and,
Well, you could always say that it's such a ruddy driveway in and out that you have a condition that it's paved properly, but I think that's part and parcel to the plan. Anyway,
We never confirmed that. Is that lot going to be repaved?
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
saw the photograph that was up there.
Yeah.
I
We
think-
assumed, but,
does the photograph say it's gonna be repaved?
Little potholes would leave customers a little upset.
Yeah.
They're pretty bad,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Crater is a better word.
Fish in those. All right. And then the final one, 6, potential fiscal impact, including impact on town services, tax base, and employment.
there would be a small increase in downtown employment with the number of bank employees that have been represented. 4 is a number that sticks in my mind. Doesn't seem that there would be any increase in town services that would be required, and I guess I would assume that if the property is developed and becomes an more active business with a more attractive building on it, that the real estate taxes might be somewhat higher than for an empty building.
I think they would increase, yeah. Yeah,
I think
the overall improvements would.
I think it was also mentioned by Mr. Steele that the bank is prepared to donate money to various community efforts and organizations, so that's a definite financial plus.
Can they raise the savings rates? And lower the borrowing rates?
Okay, so those are our 6 criteria. I think enough guidance there? Adam? Yep, good,
Yeah,
great.
good.
So then conditions, I mean, should we start with the ones that the planning board used? They had 5. I agreed with all of them, except, again, I personally didn't care too much about the lighting, but I don't think really how that affects the drive-through, but
No.
we could include it if people want to.
No.
So,
Well, you know, that's a funny
Well-
thing. I mean, we're approving a drive-through, but if a drive-through enables a condition which is detrimental to the neighborhood, for instance, if they wouldn't do without a drive-through, so they say, okay, we approve a drive-through. Now they put up lights that had a lot of glare and bother the neighbors. Well, that does become our
okay, so,
Right.
so we'll put
So, okay.
so we'll start with all 5?
Go ahead, yeah.
Okay, so we'll mirror those. The only change I had was that, again, I want to make it clear that the interior ATM is operational before
Yeah.
any exterior.
Yes,
Yes.
I
yeah,
would agree with that.
I would agree with that totally.
100%.
And the parking space issue.
Which is one of, the look-back period?
Yes,
Yeah.
the look-back period.
Okay. And you agree that it should be something, both crash data, for the site, for the space, and then also something from Ed, what's his name? Ed Berman,
Burnham.
confirming
That's APD, yeah.
that he doesn't see it as a problem?
Yeah.
Correct.
I'd like a clarification on that.
Ed Burnham as or equivalent, he might not be there, equivalent representative. of
Or
the police.
his replacement, right?
But it would be the police department that would bring it to our attention, or to the bank's attention. I mean, who's gonna conduct these studies? It's the police, correct?
They would be reporting the data.
Because his email specifically says, if it does become a problem, the space will no longer be used and a no parking sign will be erected at this location. So that indicates to me that the police are gonna take action themselves.
But there's nothing
they can't.
specific in there. It doesn't say by when.
Right, let's
And it
pose
doesn't
it,
say what constitutes a problem.
let's pose, because I believe the police have that ability if they wanted to for public safety.
Well, very limited on private property.
Yeah.
So that's a problem, the police ability to enforce. And frankly, to be entirely honest with the board, I generally have a concern with these sort of look-back conditions. I'm not suggesting you don't include it. I think that in these circumstances, if you're prepared to allow the space as an employee-only space, that this sort of a condition offers some additional protection, as long as the board understands that the degree of protection and really the enforcement mechanism is somewhat limited. It's quite clear in the law that planning boards, zoning boards, and approving special permits don't really have the ability to defer a particular determination to a later date. I appreciate Mr. Michaud's point that if you tie it to some sort of objective standard, that certainly strengthens your enforcement ability. The greatest problem I've seen in these sorts of conditions being crafted and included in decisions is how does it get enforced in the future? If you include something that says, if determined by the police chief at a future date that this particular parking space is problematic, it shall be eliminated. Well, what constitutes problematic? And doesn't that provide an awful lot of discretion to a third party that's not even the board?
Well, you could say if supported by accident statistics.
And that seemed to be what Mr. Michaud was suggesting, that there be a 6-month and maybe an additional 1-year look-back period. At the 6-month and 1-year interval, there shall be data submitted. Put the burden on the applicant to submit the data. It's going to be data from the police department, but on getting that data and submitting it to the board, if the data shows that there is a a basis for an additional restriction or elimination, that in the board's discretion, such action shall be taken. Again, I can't tell you for sure that if there was ever a challenge to that sort of a condition, that the condition would be upheld, or that the enforcement is going to be perfect. It could be difficult. But certainly it adds some additional protection beyond just designating it as an employee-only space. The planning board recognized this. There was some discussion before the board of a look-back period. They ultimately said, we're comfortable based upon representations by our traffic consultant, based upon representations by the police chief, that limiting the turnover in the space through a designation of employee-only really limits the risk. Flip side to that is that the risk still exists if it existed before, but it limits that risk.
So are you saying, Adam, that the bank actually will be self-policing itself with regard to this issue?
That would be my suggestion with this six month and 1 year look back period, that the burden be on the applicant to submit records, submit crash data from the town to the board for the board's review, and then we do our best through crafting a condition to provide for some objective standard, in investing the board with the authority at that time, either at 6 month period or the 1 year period, to take additional action, whether it be further restriction on the use of that space or elimination of the space, if warranted by the information submitted. Again, what's warranted and what sort of a standard that is, it's difficult. But if it's extreme, if there have been 3 accidents all related to that space over the course of the first 6 months, I don't think anybody would be arguing that the board doesn't have the authority to require future elimination. If in the first year there's 1 incident, that might be in the gray area there.
Right. So I was thinking maybe we set the criteria. So if there's no incidents, not an issue. If there's 1, maybe some discretion. If there's more than 2, because they're saying there will be none, right? So if there's 2 or more, I think, I mean, what's the number? 3?
3 would be better.
Then they eliminate it.
They eliminate it, yeah.
Is that fair? The applicant agree with that? If you have 3 accidents on that
They don't
spot.
care, how you gonna enforce it?
Oh,
Of what nature?
yeah.
An accident.
It's kinda,
Well, yeah.
I'm gonna ask your insurance company what they think of this.
The question of what defines an accident, I mean, if it's a soft bump, okay, the people will probably turn around and go away. If it's a more serious one where the police are summoned, I mean, how many accidents do people not summon the police? So nobody knows about it. They may not even come into the bank and say we had an accident there.
Do you remember the Dunkin' Donuts testimony?
Yes,
About the accidents?
they were all in the front parking lot.
And none of them ever went against their insurance?
And nobody called the police.
And nobody went at Dunkin' Donuts called.
The bank would be in the same position if two people have a collision in your parking lot and the police aren't involved, they drive away, you really don't know about it. Some insurance company may complain, but they're not going to complain. They're not going to involve you.
If an employee's car gets hit, then the employee's gonna be upset and suggest that we not use that parking space.
Right. If it's an employee-based, employee-only space, and they back out and are involved in a coming together of 2 motor vehicles, then yes, you'll know about it because they'll hear about it. But if they don't, if somebody else parks there, you can't do anything about that.
So our best enforcement mechanism is to hit the employee's car a couple of times.
Stu?
I'm just concerned that, we're dealing with
An issue we can't handle.
an issue we can't handle. I would much prefer Adam to draft some language that we might review, because I think we need some help here. My own personal opinion, accidents that occur between 2 individuals and not reported to the police is unofficial. And, what is that statistic that the traffic engineer is talking about? We're delving in areas we don't know anything about.
Yeah, I mean, again, to say what defines an accident, we're going off the deep end.
Adam,
I do think it's very difficult to provide entirely objective standards in terms of quantitative standard, number of accidents, because of the question of severity, because of the question of reporting of accidents or non-reporting of accidents. So I think it's better to keep the condition broad. I wasn't suggesting it wasn't. I was just suggesting that also makes it more difficult to enforce the condition in the future. It becomes more of a subjective question for the board when it's presented with data, crash data 1 year from now, indicating that there have been 2 incidents, one relatively minor, maybe one much more substantial, but where it was determined that it was the fault of the individual who was backing out of the space. What do you do then? You're in a difficult position, and you're subject to challenge if you take substantial action like requiring elimination of the space. Was that an abuse of your discretion? And should that action have been taken at the time that you reviewed the special permit application? So there's that risk that exists in the future, but you've heard an offer from the applicant here to include this sort of a condition. It was suggested by the applicant's traffic consultant that the condition be crafted in the way that we've described, where there's a 6-month and 1 year look back period, where there's this provision providing for either restriction or elimination of the space appropriate to the nature of the crash or incident. I think if we include that sort of language in the condition, that provides the board with some greater authority than it would have if the condition wasn't in the decision to begin with.
Thank you. I, for one, say write it that way.
Yes,
That
I would
sounds
agree
good.
with Mr. Michaud's thought was right.
And thank you for the offer, Mr. Michaud.
Any other conditions?
None
No.
for me.
Okay, so then I think we can close the hearing. Well, okay, so the plan then is to meet on the 14th on this, to vote on it,
Yes.
right? That's October 14th. And but do we have the 40B that day already? I don't remember now.
Yeah.
We do already, right?
I think we do.
At 7:15. So, how much time? I mean, we just sort of went through it all, but, I mean, we'll have your draft in advance.
You will.
So theoretically, we could get it done in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Should be.
Okay. So,
Can
okay.
we,
yeah,
can we
go ahead.
discuss the draft between ourselves by email?
No.
No.
No, okay.
So if we don't get it done in 10 minutes, then we'll just have to open up the other hearing
Right.
and then do it at the end.
Sure,
Yeah.
right.
So, I mean, that's fine.
That's fine. You can also open up the other hearing and continue that other hearing for 15
Right,
minutes and
right,
not
if
take it
we-
up.
right.
My sense is it may take a bit more than 10 minutes. We've obviously gone through quite a bit of it, but we want to be sure that we get the conditions right. These decisions are not going to be as substantive as the planning board site plan review decision, but those 2 decisions took a meeting that went for over 2 hours. They hadn't made their findings in advance, but I think it may take a bit more than 10 minutes.
Okay. Well, we'll give it a shot, and then we'll play it by ear. So, all right, so then let's close the meeting and then put it on the agenda to deliberate on the 14th at 7:05. So I will entertain a motion for one or both of those.
Make a motion to continue the hearing.
Oh,
To close the hearing.
Close the
public
hearing,
Yeah,
and then reconvene on the 14th for voting.
for deliberation voting, okay. At 7:05. Second on that?
A
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. That's it.
That's it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
So, I think that is everything.
Yeah.
Unless you guys have anything else you wanted to discuss.
When's our new member going to join?
Well, I brought his approval letter. I guess,
It's a
maybe I'll
matter-
reach out to him. I didn't think I had to, but maybe I will.
Yeah, he probably needs to, he
He has to get
usually
sworn
he
in.
has to get sworn.
Right.
And I know Tony was talking about that last week, that he wanted to get him sworn
Okay, well, yeah,
in.
I have one item,
yeah,
and it's not gonna be a pleasant one, but,
okay.
and I direct this to Stan. Could we refrain from making jokes? You make a comment and then there's a joke, and I think it distracts from the actual meeting.
I'll do my best.
Thank you.
Okay,
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. All right, almost.